You see it in politicians, like the Reform candidate for Gorton and Denton, who look at people like Rishi Sunak, Shabana Mahmood, and presumably Marcus Rashford, Shirley Bassey, Anna Sala, and say they can't really be English or Welsh or Scottish because they are not white. An affront to British values as I see them. And I tell you, as long as I've got breath in my body, I will always fight against that politics.
Two-tier Keir only has one strategy left: to launch a race war. And that's what he's trying to do. The MSM won't accurately report it, but I am going to unveil his sickening plan shortly. The scandal of the century, now engulfing slippery Starmer, will end up bringing down the entire corrupted Labour Party. So, in the past hour, police have raided 2 of Mandelson's homes, one in Camden, North London, one in Wiltshire, as the investigation into Starmer's ex-US ambassador, who has been investigated for misconduct in public office over his sickening links to Jeffrey Epstein, turns terminal for this crooked government. Here's how the astonishing news broke in the MSM over the past hour.
Got some breaking news to bring you now, and it's this. The Metropolitan Police are carrying out searches related to Lord Mandelson's relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, and the Deputy Assistant Commissioner Hayley Stewart of the Metropolitan Police has said this: I can confirm that officers from the Met's Central Specialist Crime Team are in the process of carrying out search warrants at 2 addresses, one in the Wiltshire area and the another in the Camden area of London. The searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man. He has not been arrested and inquiries are ongoing. A huge development there in the Mandelson investigation.
We then received this statement from the Metropolitan Police, which said it can confirm that officers from the Met Central Specialist Crime Team are in the process of carrying out search warrants at 2 addresses, one in the Wiltshire area, the other in the Camden area. The searches are related to an ongoing investigation into misconduct in public office offences involving a 72-year-old man. He has not been arrested and enquiries are ongoing. But I wanted to show you the arrogance of Peter Mandelson, because this is one of the homes just raided by police. He was showing off these pictures in the Times newspaper just days ago. They will publish them tomorrow because he was so convinced he was going to be allowed another comeback. And what I can tell you is that this scandal, this sorry saga, just shows that Labour doesn't care about the country at all. Slippery Starmer has been nominally left in charge of our disunited kingdom, while our Angie, who I have now christened Red Rayner the tax evader, hopes and prays she will be cleared by HMRC. They are messy, dirty scum. In the meantime, two-tier Keir only has one strategy left: to launch a race war. And that's what he's trying to do. The MSM won't accurately report it, but I am going to unveil his sickening plan shortly. The hypocrisy of Labour, however, on this story is truly jaw-dropping. As Daniel Hannan put it, when quoting this old post from Slippery Starmer, "The party is over, Boris Johnson, resign," he said it is incredible that Starmer has not yet gone. The man who hounded Boris out of office over some untouched birthday cake. Labour MPs are even admitting to the British Bashing Corporation and Woke ITV that the PM is now fatally wounded and toast.
The mood among Labour MPs is bleak. Here's a flavour of what some have told the BBC privately. He's toast, claims one. It's got an inevitability but not an immediacy about it, another tells us. Another texts, he's like a wounded wildebeest, fatally wounded but determined to show how strong he is, knowing full well the end is nigh.
How upset are Labour MPs with Starmer?
What's happened is an unforgivable betrayal of our stance on violence against women and girls. That has to be the first thing, our thoughts about the survivors. There is no reason why, no good reason, I think, why Mandelson should have been appointed in the first place.
He has to act to change what's happening in number 10. I don't think we can carry on with that at the moment.
I think in practical terms, the Prime Minister's position is just not tenable. It has solidified my view that we need a change in leadership.
Arch Labour establishment loyalist, former Deputy Leader of the party, Harriet Harman, couldn't even sugarcoat the reality on her Sly News podcast.
I don't think it's inevitable that it will bring him down, but it will bring him down unless he takes the action which is really necessary for him to take, and that's this. Firstly, he's got to stop blaming Mandelson and saying he lied to me, because actually he should never have been considering him in the first place. And to say he lied to me makes it look weak and naive and gullible. So it's just completely the wrong thing. He should be reflecting on why he made that appointment, not angry at the evilness of Peter Mandelson.
Although Beth Rigby, who looks like she's in mourning there, did her best job to save Starmer, writing, "That was a survival speech and seemed to me an appeal to his party as he made the case to stay in post." As John Longworth hit back, "Johnson gets sacked for a piece of cake. You went for him despite having a party yourself. But when it comes to Starmer effectively overseeing treason, it is a different story. Laughable if it were not so serious and so tragic for the country." And trust me, this is going to get worse. There are months of revelations to come, with British officials now braced for the release of Mandelson's messages as ambassador, which they fear could torpedo Starmer's relationship with Trump. One said there is lots which could be damaging, and he used to download his thoughts in real time. Now, you'll remember a time where Starmer used to claim he was about more than just power at any cost. He lied. Of course he did, because as Labour columnist Dan Hodges argued, Keir Starmer genuinely wants the nation to believe that this photo, which was in the initial file submitted to him on Mandelson, is of two men who barely knew each other. He knew, we all knew, in 2019, if not earlier. So here's the crowd who Starmer has now decided to appeal to with the launch of his race war.
I'm taking the flag down. I find it really offensive. I think we've got no humanity left in this country. It's shocking. It's racist. The fact that this big man is aggressively standing in front of me, raging, and then pulling these flags back off me, says it all. Says it all. There's so much hatred. Where's the love? Where's the humanity? I have no words. I find it disgusting.
So Starmer used his desperate save me speech in Hastings yesterday to appeal to middle-class haters, suicidal middle-class haters of England like that woman, to undermine British and English ethnicity altogether. The MSM are ignoring it, but I want you to watch and listen to this closely. We are on a mission to 700,000 subscribers, so I need you to do something for me right now. It is free, it is easy, it is simple. Just hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's because over 50% of you watching this video haven't done that yet, and it is the best way to support Outspoken. We're totally independent, by the way, no big tech backing, no billionaires pulling the strings, and if you turn on the bell, you'll get alerted to all our new videos.
In the industrialised grievance factory, in parts of social media, miserable video after miserable video, telling you that entire cities and towns, the great communities of this country, are wastelands, no-go zones. And worse, selling the lie, defied every day by millions of people in this country, that people who look different cannot really live together. I reject that completely. And you see it in politicians, like the Reform candidate for Gorton and Denton, who look at people like Rishi Sunak, Shabana Mahmood, and presumably Marcus Rashford, Shirley Bassey, Anna Sala, and say they can't really be English or Welsh or Scottish. because they are not white. An affront to British values as I see them. And I tell you, as long as I've got breath in my body, I will always fight against that politics.
As Connor Tomlinson, who will be here shortly, posted, Starmer is determined to deny that the English, Scottish, Welsh and Irish exist as distinct ethnic groups, all while weaponising imported ethnic and religious communities against them. Obsessive, ethnocidal rhetoric, it's clear the posting is getting to him. Starmer believes that immigrants are more British than Indigenous Brits, so not being British is how you're really British. Nobody buys this. Maybe not. But it is absolutely the game plan from Labour as they try to save Starmer. And I can prove it because this is what Labour MPs have been told to go out and fight on in the mainstream media. Evidence here from LBC, where Reform UK's Sarah Pochin was hounded by the Labour MP Gordon McKee over her past comments on DEI in advertising and Tommy Robinson's endorsement of the party. Watch.
The last time that Reform won a by-election in this country, Sarah was elected. That's right. And you have used your platform to go on TV and say that you don't want to see black or Asian people on television.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Is the consequence of Reform getting a seat. So you're not going to disavow the endorsement by Tommy Robinson?
People can endorse who they want to endorse.
He's literally a white supremacist.
We cannot stop anybody endorsing us.
The leading racist in this country.
We cannot stop anybody endorsing us.
You're okay with that. But you can say right here on this show that you don't want his endorsement. Are you going to say that?
Look,
you're not going to say that.
The point is, no, it's not shameful. You're shameful in accusing me of being a racist when you know there's not a racist bone in my body. But
I know what you said on television, and I know that your candidate is endorsed by Tommy Robinson.
Look, we do not choose who endorses us.
So Nigel Farage has said he doesn't want anything to do with Tommy Robinson.
Absolutely.
So you would say that?
Of course.
So why can't you say you don't want his endorsement?
Well, listen, he's done it. We can't take it back. You know, everybody is free to endorse.
But you can't say you don't want it. You can say he's an abhorrent individual who's spreading abhorrent views.
I would agree with Nigel that there is no place for Tommy Robinson in Reform as a member of Parliament or in any other way. But we cannot stop somebody if he wants to endorse us, he's going to endorse us.
Tommy Robinson responded, "Who is this absolute wrong'un? According to him, I'm a white supremacist and Britain's leading racist." The sheer anger as he speaks it. The left are evidently self-hating, violent weirdos. Maybe they are. But trust me, this is a plot. Starmer is trying to stoke a race war to stay in power, and they have the media on their side. Because the media are neck deep in the Mandelson stuff. I mean, defund the BBC reminded us, now that the BBC are twisting the knife in Mandelson, let's remember that just 3 weeks ago, after her softball interview with him, Koonsberg was telling us about how poor Pete was devastated to lose his job and reputation and wants to move on. Watch and feel sickened by the very obvious rehabilitation effort Koonsberg just wants us to forget about.
You've had a Sunday Scoop. You've been speaking to Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson. You can see that on iPlayer and listen to it on BBC Sounds. How did you find him?
Peter Mandelson, over the years, has always been somebody who has had something of a swagger, something of a bit of dash and a bit of élan, some people might say. Others might say sort of ridiculous silkiness and confidence. And he's got a reputation as being an incredible master communicator. My impression of him when we sat down yesterday was that he has been, I think, quite devastated by losing this job working with the White House. I think he has been absolutely devastated too by the loss of his reputation because of his dealings with Jeffrey Epstein. And I think he is at the moment a very changed person. Now, whether or not he will, bounce back, and he clearly, by deciding that he wanted to take a tiptoe into public this week to offer his take on President Trump, as well as explain what really happened between him and Jeffrey Epstein, he clearly does want to move on. In fact, he said that in part of our interview. He said, "I'm moving on."
Then there's the shamed Spectator editor, Michael Gove, who endorsed Mandelson as US ambassador, by the way, as well as Kamala Harris as US president. And Suella Braverman pointed out, intriguing how The Spectator forgot to mention this particular misjudgment. Lord Gove is now the editor of The Spectator. She linked to this column by him, Michael Gove, why Peter Mandelson is the best choice to handle Trump. So now we are treated to the Gove apology tour with Andrew Marr on LBC, who, remember, claimed Starmer was going to usher in a unique era of utopia.
You were one of many people who at the time thought this was a good appointment as ambassador. Let's talk about that, because it wasn't a ridiculous view at the time.
There's egg on a lot of faces at the moment, and there's a few scraps of yolk and albumin on mine, because I thought that, given the range of people who were available, that this was a sensible choice, because I thought, given the Trump White House, given the importance of the Anglo-American relationship, given his skill, undoubted skill as a minister, and his experience as an EU commissioner, this was a good choice. And I think, and here, of course, I'm a Tory, but here I do have some sympathy with the position that Keir Starmer finds himself in. Those around Starmer will have said that this choice was a risk, but it was a risk where Mandelson's experience and his ability was known. What was also known was his unreliability, but what was unknown was the scale of the activity and the intimacy with Epstein at the time he was appointed. I was as gullible a duck swept along by the tide in the SW1 pond as any.
Yeah, as you always have been, yet you were made editor of The Spectator. I wonder why. We also see the MSM shills who care about Epstein victims now, but have spent years ignoring the white British girls brutalised by Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. The same people who continue to refuse to cover Rupert Lowe's rape gang inquiry, which is going on right now. Take Susanna Reid, who posted, "Today I felt the echo of how it must have felt over 2 decades for the many, many victims of Epstein and his cronies to be lied to, gaslit, explained away, criticised, complained about. I don't think politicians have grasped that. The girls were hurt, a conviction was secured, but still that isn't enough. My sympathies are only with them." But as Higgy responded, this is a British, quote, journalist who appears on our screens every weekday morning. Here she says she feels the pain of Epstein's victims. Fair enough. But she worked from the BBC from the mid-90s, first as a news producer, then as a news presenter. Did she ever, just once in her entire 30-year news career, report on what was happening in this country with the Pakistani rape gangs? Of course not. None of them did. Crocodile tears for victims of crime thousands of miles away is no compensation whatsoever for a complete lack of tears for the victims on your own doorstep. Good point. Then there's the Times reporting on Mandelson, which has been discredited when Starmer's propagandist biographer Tom Baldwin reminded the newspaper's political editor, also worth saying, that the Times saw no problem in hiring Mandelson to front its politics podcast when all of this was in the public domain. Sure, that's not the same as making him an ambassador, but, and as Ed McGuinness asked Times radio presenters Hugo Rifkind, Stig Abel and Kate McCann, I honestly really love Times Radio, but I'm not sure they can go hard on the Mandelson story before they disclose how much vetting they did on him before acquiring him as a regular panellist on how to win an election. Of course, the most corrupted force as ever is the fake news agents. Look, there's Mateless, with her hands all over Mandelson at a cosy dinner, having admitted to sitting on his residence cross-legged just last year. So it was left to the intel lady to brilliantly mock Emily Mateless's position. But first, as we get older, you notice it. After a cold day, hard workout, even a long week, recovery just isn't as quick as it used to be, right? That bounce back factor matters. And it turns out the secret isn't luck, it's stem cells, your body's built-in repair crew. With age, that system slows down. Fewer cells, weaker signals, slower recovery. That's exactly why Qualia created Qualia Stem Cell. Think of it this way. Your cells are powerful. Qualia Stem Cell helps keep them that way. It's crafted with nature's heavy lifters, sea buckthorn, royal jelly, and more to support your body's natural repair system so you can keep moving, healing, and thriving. You don't have to accept slowing down. This is about supporting better aging by reactivating the systems that help you bounce back. And it's refreshingly simple. You take it just 4 days a month. So if you've ever felt like your body just doesn't bounce back like it used to, whether it's after a tough workout, getting sick, or just the wear and tear of life, this is for you. Qualia Stem Cell was designed to support your body's natural repair systems, helping you heal, recover, and keep going strong. And right now, you can try it for up to 50% off at qualialife.com/Dan. And here's a bonus. Use the code Dan for an additional 15% off your order. So that's QUALIA life.com/Dan. Your body's built to repair itself. Qualia just helps it do it that better. And a big thanks, by the way, to Qualia for sponsoring this episode of Outspoken. But now, back to the show.
In order to be an award-winning journalist, I have to speak to everybody. I have to speak to people right across the political aisle. And that would mean that sometimes I have to interview or be seen with unsavoury characters, people that I wouldn't necessarily have in my circle of friends. And that's fine. That's part of my job. So to see a photograph of myself having a playful interaction with Peter Mandelson, I was just readjusting his dicky bow, his tie on his neck, and having a little giggle with him at the same time. People took that photograph, which incidentally is 16 years old. It's a 16-year-old photograph. It's absolutely ludicrous to me that a photograph floating around the internet is somehow, to the far right adjacent, a smoking gun.
She is brilliant. She is brilliant. The far right adjacent. Very, very good. But that crew is still in power, of course, because Angie Rayner, the tax evader, is now using them to plot her socialist takeover of the country, which, trust me, is coming. The Mail today reporting on her cosy meetings in Notting Hill with Matthew Freud, as she vows her leadership campaign is already on. Indeed, the Daily Mail understands that in the wake of Wednesday's Commons vote, Ms. Rayner told an MP who observed that the Prime Minister would have to resign, "I will be ready." So the reign of Rayner is coming, but Starmer just wants to plunge us into a race war first to try and save his own skin. It won't be successful. But just remember, as Guido Fawkes has joyously collated, things can only, at this point, get worse.
Oh, my God.
Angela Rayner, Deputy Prime Minister, how does that feel? How does that feel, Deputy Prime Minister? Can I just say, if I may, I've never seen a Deputy Prime Minister with the phone strap. I mean, that sort of signifies to me a new era, right? It's just a different type of politician.
I think just having a stable government that will be there for 5, maybe 10 years, who knows, but with sort of ordinary, down-to-earth, serious people talking like the rest of us in charge of the government, and a plan that doesn't shift very much for investment, is going to mean a wall of money coming into this country from around the world. And suddenly, for once, for the first time in many of our lives, actually Britain looks like a little haven of peace and stability.
Angela Rayner has resigned as Deputy Prime Minister.
We're hearing in the last few moments that Peter Mandelson has been asked to withdraw as ambassador.
The PA news agency is now reporting that Peter Mandelson will resign as a peer of the realm.
I think we have entered the final stage of the Starmer premiership.
I regret appointing him. If I knew then what I know now, he would never have been anywhere near government.
This could end up becoming the biggest political scandal of the century.
I am sorry.
Very good. Now, Connor Tomlinson is back. Connor, more strange goings on from Peter Mandelson's 2 homes, which have been raided this afternoon by police. Look at this. The Daily Telegraph has just reported that at 5:21 p.m, a suited middle-aged man arrived at Lord Mandelson's home in a taxi, and after receiving no response to the knocker, opened the letterbox to speak to those inside. He declined to answer questions from the press. 2 police officers have been seen leaving the property to retrieve a bundle of unfolded white cardboard boxes from their unmarked vehicle, which they then took into the house. So it does seem clear that a lot of personal property of Mandelson's is being taken away in these raids.
Yes, and we can only hope that eventually the answers that Keir Starmer would like to hide from the public are made public. And I wanted to point out, Dan, that in that humorous montage, well, not really that funny considering we're living in the country that it's depicting, that Guido Fawkes cut together, that wasn't even the extent of just this scandal, let alone all the other scandals that they had to miss out for time, like, for example, the climb down from the farmers' inheritance tax raid, or digital ID that they've pretended to get rid of, but they're just reconfiguring it to pitch it back to us because Blair is obsessed with it. Or maybe Tulip Siddiq, the anti-corruption minister, whose aunt was cooed out in Bangladesh and now she's being sentenced to prison for corruption. And, of course, Angela Rayner having to resign as Deputy Prime Minister because she still hasn't paid back that overdue council tax bill on one of her properties. And, of course, the Red Queen is currently plotting quietly to depose Starmer. She led the rebellion, the vote rebellion, against his attempts to redact bits of information prejudicing national security or international relations from this humble statement. So the amount of stuff we've had to endure from the last couple of years, again, without mentioning Southport, on the daily migrant sex attacks that they are enabling and wanting to encourage by diversifying the countryside and dropping fighting-age men across our country in houses of multiple occupancy, including the recent military barracks in Crowborough, just day after day. Repeated injustices that we suffer at the hands of Starmer's government, but also the broader civil service and the Blairite state that his puppet masters have instantiated, not least of all Peter Mandelson. So anything they get that can convict this guy for, frankly, the high crimes and misdemeanors in office that I think we all know he committed, leaving aside the fact that he thought it was prudent to celebrate his friendship with the world's most famous paedophile, it would be wonderful to get answers on all this stuff and to get some accountability. I only fear that we are going to get Starmer out, McSweeney gone, Mandelson in irons, but all of the other people involved in that network are either never going to have the light of scrutiny shone on them or never going to face consequences for the treachery they've inflicted on our country.
Well, Connor, I think you are probably right to an extent, but the problem is these guys are hypocrites and their hypocrisy is now going to haunt them. Because breaking right now, this from Kathy Newman, who is currently the left-wing journalist still of Times Radio, soon to move to Sly News, who has just revealed leader of the Liberal Democrats, Edward Davey, has removed the whip from Lord Rayner after a woman who alleged the pair sexually harassed her and others emailed Sir Ed, urging him to apply the same rules to his own party as he was demanding of the PM over the Mandelson saga. Now, we have a statement from Ed Davey that is just in. Let me come to it here. He says, Renard has had the Liberal Democrat whip suspended in the House of Lords, and I have asked the party to conduct a new investigation into these allegations. The party has now received legal advice that the 2013 investigation into allegations against him was flawed in several respects. I completely agree that Renard should not be a member of the House of Lords. I believe it should be made easier for peers to be expelled from the Lords for serious misconduct. So Ed Davey, another one who has been acting like Starmer as if his shit don't stink. Well, actually, mate, you've got problems too.
Oh, and it's endemic to the Tory party as well, Dan. I mean, it's not just Chris Pincher who made Boris Johnson fall on his sword after the farce of Partygate, of course. He should have been... Boris Johnson should be imprisoned for the Boris wave alone, let alone what he did to us during lockdown. But that's by the by. Neither of us like Nadine Dorries very much. I mean, she's at best a dingbat and at worst someone who promised to imprison Jimmy Carr for a joke. But she is correct when there are a series of reprobates with potential sexual compromat on Tory party candidates that are pulling the strings and controlling candidate selection in the Conservative Party. So it just seems like a series of compromat gathering exercises govern who gets to sit in the House of Commons. And I must say, I know that there is no shortage of Rupert Lowe praise on this show, but it's very telling when Rupert Lowe gets up in Parliament and says, well, I think we have Elon Musk to thank for not just X amplifying the grooming gang scandal story, but without X, we wouldn't have had all of these documents from the Epstein files shared by citizen journalists, amplified worldwide, and turned into the necessary scandal that potentially gets Starmer out of office. The fact that Rupert Lowe was heckled for saying that means that there are very few politicians sitting in the Houses of Parliament who are not afraid of being outed also.
I saw that. That was extraordinary. We've actually got the clip because I think maybe not enough people have seen this. So take a look.
We all owe a great vote of thanks and gratitude to Elon Musk and X, who has played his part in exposing a great deal of this evil.
Connor, I mean, this is why a lot of people are now saying the only person who represents anti-establishment is Rupert Lowe. And anti-establishment will end up winning. They will end up winning, just like Brexit ended up winning.
Yeah, especially if you continue to play ship of Theseus with your party with, regardless of the individual merits of the candidates who defect, people from the previous party that mucked up the government. And it's very important to focus on Rupert, by the way, because remember last year when he was taking the unpopular but necessary and vindicated stance that not only do we need a national inquiry, but the families who covered up for the Pakistani rape gang perpetrators' crimes need to be deported along with the perpetrators. He was heckled by not just plenty of MPs, but Sarah Champion was condemning him for his language. I mean, she is an MP in one of the constituencies where the rape gangs are operating and is now part of the party who had Peter Mandelson as their US ambassador. But also Liz Savile-Roberts was sitting there rolling her eyes at Rupert. Liz Savile-Roberts, Liberal Democrat MP, who yet again, as you've just said, has now got a Lord who is having to have the whip withdrawn and his position in the House of Lords questioned for sexual impropriety. So the only good thing I think can come of this, Dan, is that not only after a sufficiently patriotic government wins power can they enact a Great Repeal Act, repealing all the laws that were passed under Blair, Cameron, May, Johnson, Sunak, and now Starmer, but also, if we now have the standard from Mandelson, from this Lib Dem MP, hopefully some others, of withdrawing peerages from lords that should have never been appointed in the first place and allowed to gerrymander the House of Lords, then that means that we can go back and retroactively withdraw the peerages from all of these people, the titles and honours from all of these people like Tony Blair and Sadiq Khan and Michael Gove, who should have never been put there in the first place.
Dan Wootton Outspoken is your no-spin, no-bias, no-censorship outlet for independent news. We have no big tech backing or billionaires pulling my strings, but that does mean I need your support. So please hit subscribe on YouTube, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe to Dan Wootton Outspoken on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It's totally free, but allows me to continue my promise to always keep fighting for you.